breaking news: the Netherlands halts the F-16 sale to Draken, and they're going to send them directly to.
Can you pull that in? I got the wrong buttons. There you go.
All right, there we go. They're sending them directly to Ukraine instead. I think it's only scroll down. I got it, Doug. So we're planning to sell 6 F-16 fighter jets to a U.S. company that will prepare the planes for delivery to Ukraine instead, and will prepare the planes for delivery to Ukraine instead, according to the Dutch Defense Ministry. The agreement increases the number of Dutch aircraft that will be handed over to the embattled country to 24. The Dutch had been negotiating with Draken International, Lakeland, Florida company. After a deal to sell the company 12 F-16s fell through last year, the two parties ended talks on a new agreement for 6. And now they're saying, you know what? You're not getting any. And so now in November, it sent the first of 18 aircraft to Romania for pilot training. Plan to transfer the jets will praise losses in Ukraine. Their aerial superiority is essential for countering Russian aggression, the defense minister said. In 2021, they had agreed to sell 12 with an option for another 28. And the deal fell apart with a disagreement on the state of maintenance of the jets at the time of handover. And this is important because we're going to talk about Australian jets, which Gonki is going to have later. But it will help suppress Russian air defense systems with upgraded with air-to-air radar and air-to-air missile capabilities, upgrade from their older jets. They were the MLU jets from 1998 to 2002 out of 138, so they're equivalent of Block 50 and 52. Netherlands has replaced that, obviously, with the F-35, which they were down in Tucson flying. A friend of mine is good friends with them, the guys down in Tucson. And we've seen some cool footage of those dudes, and they're really cool jets. Thank you, Douglas. We'll take that off and talk about it. So Draken's had a rough time. You know, they were, I remember, because I obviously wanted to go fly the Viper with them or anyone. I'm still available. And
me too.
Just FYI.
So what the heck? Why not?
No, Gonki.
I can probably figure it out.
No, you know why? Because if you say that, they're going to call you, and Gonki's going to be flying the F-35, and all movers going to be like, well, that seemed like a good idea. Despite the fact that I've got 1,000 hours in the gym. Just saying. Anyway, so they had some issues, and it wasn't really related, but I think it kind of started the downfall where they were talking about, they were getting Vipers, you know, they have the Mirage, they have all these aircraft, and they were making this huge footprint at Nellis. And then one day that kind of fell apart. You know, the Nellis thing, they I don't know if they've lost the contract or just were told, hey, you know, you're not doing this anymore. The government didn't like how that was working, didn't renew them. And then they kind of spread out to the other bases, and that was still going. And they were still getting the Vipers to go to Lakeland. And, you know, the order cut down and then cut down some more. And now it looks like they're not going to get Vipers at all because they're going to provide to Ukraine, which I guess that is a correction. We've talked about, you know, Vipers to Ukraine and whether that would be helpful. And the correction is the U.S. is not doing that. You know, the U.S. is giving support and money, but the actual aircraft are not coming from us. They're coming from NATO partners that are upgrading the F-35, which obviously means there's probably deals and, you know, about how much they pay for the F-35s and all that. I mean, there's always incentives. It's not just like, oh, the goodness of our heart. Like there's a lot of stuff happening. Yeah. So it is a good capability increaser, but I don't know. What do you guys think about, you know, the civilian contractor no longer getting them for Red Air?
Well, I think it hurts the readiness of the U.S. military. I actually met a guy that was part of that whole Nellis, you know, hey, one day they didn't have the contract, and the Air Force solution was to ask the military side, hey, we need you to put up twice as many Red Air. And they're like, and the response was, we would have been doing that if we could have.
Right.
So now, you know, guys and gals in the U.S. aren't getting the training assets that would be available. And, you know, like we've kind of said in the past, you know, Mover, the F-16 is a great airplane, but you know what, you know, how effective will it be in Ukraine is debatable. So I mean, hey,
Well,
if you need, sorry.
I mean, my question then is to that point is what are they giving them as far as weapons, right? An F-16 is great with 20 Mike, but are we getting AIM-120s? Are we now partners with Ukraine, a non-NATO country, to give them an export version of an AIM-120, or are they getting like AIM-7s?
Yeah,
AIM-9 Papas?
There's a whole litany list of, you know, options that you could go through. Are they getting this? And that would dictate tremendously the effectiveness of that airplane in that conflict. Not to mention the fact that it would take a well-trained pilot to employ it, right? And that takes time.
Well, they're getting that. I mean, they are getting that. I mean, so the F-16 is pretty easy as far as, you know, systems management. Well, depending on what block they have. I mean,
right. See, I mean, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's easy to fly. So that's not hard to learn. It will hurt you. You know, I mean, a 9G jet that'll hold 9Gs until you know, G-lock or let off.
But like, you know, against S-400, against
double-digit SAMs and stuff like that. You know, I mean, are they getting, you know, harm capability or HTS pods? They're going to do seed with them. I mean,
like you said,
but it's still a performance increase, right? It's a good thing for the country to get that, and it's cool that the Dutch are doing that for them.
You have to, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So the longer the conflict draws out, I think the more important it is for them to get these assets now, because if it draws out for 10 years, well, 10 years from now, that will be time to iron out whatever, you know, they need to do. But, you know, if this thing is close to ending, you know, time is, in my mind, Ukraine's friend when it comes to acquiring more complicated, higher end Western weapons.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Casmo, what do you got, man?
I mean, you know, I don't know too much about all that stuff, but it just seems to me that it's probably more political than anything else, right? It's not about is the F-16 or whatever going to be helpful for this. It's probably more along the lines of building inroads for future relationships and things, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You know, you're demonstrating strength and resolve. When you start giving a country material
cool toys.
Material support, you're showing that, hey, we're not going to just let you steamroll. You know, we're going to keep helping them.
Right.
But you still have to have an objective, you know, an end goal, and all countries.
Do you though? I don't know.
I mean,
don't get us booted.
Both the Russians and the Americans know about a little country called Afghanistan. And you know how that works out when you're trying to do something and resolve goes away. Home field advantage is a big thing.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Honest question here. Oh boy. What would prevent Russia from bombing the fields the F-16s are at? Hardened bunker, SAM, AAA. It just seems like it'd be a waste of equipment. You know, when Special was on, he caught a lot of flack because he was like, they're just going to shoot hypersonic missiles. And some of the criticism was valid, like, you know, they're going to spread it out. But here's the thing with the F-16. You need a prepared field. It's not something that you can just, you know, support on a random road. It takes a lot. Now, can it be done? Do they do that? Yes. But it's not something you're just going to get them and all of a sudden you're operating out of roads and forward deployed and all that stuff, because that intake is a Hoover. In fact, if it's high humidity day, you'll see it swirling and you'll see the moisture do a little tornado from the ground all the way into the intake. And I remember when we flew at Balad at night, NVG's on. And it wasn't because we needed help taxiing. It was because we needed to see the FOD to avoid it, because those little rocks would shine under NVGs. And then you would either go around it or stop and have the soft truck come or the sweeper come and sweep the runway, because it would suck up foreign object debris and you'd FOD out your motor. And that's the end of that. So if you're doing that at a field like Balad that the Air Force has been operating out of at the time for many years, imagine Ukraine, where cratered, you know, roads, runways, whatever. So it's not just something that's plug and play like that. And they're probably going to have to keep them together just because parts and maintenance You have to have commonality. You can't just, now granted, in the field, there's a lot of stuff you can do, but I mean, you're talking hydrazine for the emergency power unit. You're talking all the hydraulic servicing, all that stuff, which crew chiefs are obviously smarter than me on this, but I'm just saying there's a reason we have units right now with older F-16s that are struggling to keep them going because of parts and equipment.
Yeah, the training of operating in an austere environment alone. I mean, it's not something you just walk into. You got to prepare everybody for that, and it's everything. It's not just pilots landing on roads and stuff. It's all the infrastructure and just how to operate like that. It's hard. I mean, the Army does it, and it's hard when we do it. So you're going to take a bunch of jet dudes and suddenly like, hey, you operate on roads and stuff. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead, man.
Well, I was just going to say, what they have now is designed for it. The Russians designed it. The beefy gear, the intakes, everything what they have, they're designed to do this because that's the Russian concept of operations. We don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, Western high tech, fighter. So I saw a little bit of this in Malaysia. When the Brits brought the Typhoon, very maintenance intensive airplane, and those guys had like dehumidifiers going, and I'm serious, all kinds of crazy stuff. The 2-seat jet that came in broke, and it never flew. Like they flew it out of there at the end of the TDY or the detachment, and talking to the Brit pilots, they were like, man, like the Typhoon needs a real hangar with air conditioning. And they told me like, we have a hard time back home, like keeping this airplane flying. They're like, I'm not sure this airplane would survive long-term in Asia, where it's rainy and high humidity. So, I mean, like you said, Mover, when the conditions get bad, it becomes much harder to maintain these airplanes that are really high performance, but they require a lot of maintenance and attention. And you hit the nail on the head. The MiG-29, that thing was built for,
And I remember it just made me think of it because I was thinking about, our time at Eglin with the F-22s and, when it would get cold and stuff like that, the older jets would have problems. And then I remembered ICE-FOD. ICE-FOD procedures are in effect. You would have issues with the F-16 when it got below a certain temperature, and that humidity and that vortex could create ICE-FOD. And now you're fighting out your engine with ice if it was the conditions were right. And there were rules which I obviously don't remember as far as there were start times and all that stuff, and you had to have somebody watching. But that's all considerations, especially in an austere environment, in a cold weather environment, like that. But personally, I love the F-16, but in a perfect world, I think the Gripen would be the answer for that, because that's what it was designed for. It's a very compact, plug and play, high tech aircraft that was made to go take off and land on fields and have low maintenance and not need a lot of support because of that very mission, that mission set. So my opinion only, I still love the Viper.